Hello, Sherry.
Hi, Julie. How are you?
Good. Okay, this is connected to my camera on this, not on that camera. Let's see. There's another camera. What does that camera say? Okay, that's the other camera.
Warm in there today?
No, we're air conditioned right now, so
That's good.
gotta love it.
I didn't turn mine on.
I think I'm just gonna do this. Because that way it's just done. I gotta turn the lights on.
You want us to sit in the dark?
Yes, we're all sitting in the dark, whether you like it or not.
Hello?
Brooke?
How you doing?
Brooke?
Brooke, no?
I wonder where this goes. Brooke? Hey, it's Julie. What phone did I just call? Oh, okay, she's not there. I found a couple boxes in the library, so if just tell her that when she comes back. Thanks, bye.
Cammy Clary?
Yes, I've got lots of people coming. Thanks, Cammie.
Yep, no problem.
Looks like Lynn's there.
Yeah.
Steinmetz.
Hi, Linda. Hello.
Hi, Linda.
Hello.
We'll see what my internet's like. My Zoom meetings this week haven't been going too well, so been really glitchy. So apologize ahead of time.
Oh,
Well, I heard that if you don't use your camera, it works a little better sometimes.
Yeah, I'm gonna try with the camera. Then if I have to, I can turn the video off too and just listen.
Yep. Well, thank you for being here.
Yep.
Did everybody get a chance to, I don't remember what I put in the invite. Did anybody see, other than the Zoom invite, did I put like the agenda in there? No, I did not. Okay. So compose.
hello, how are you?
I'm good, how are you?
Good.
Behaving yourself?
We don't have a whole lot of choice.
I know.
Except, you know, that outdoor sport of golf is pretty nice.
Outdoor what?
Golf, because you can,
Social distance.
oh yeah,
And you can drink alcohol.
well.
And you don't do that. Great.
All right, I just sent everybody a link.
Phone call line 2, and test phone call line 2.
And I think I have to change permissions. Cammie, I have you on here. Let's make you an editor. Okay. And I need to change this. Anyone with the link? Got it. Done. All righty. One more minute. Hi. Hi. Right on the counter here are some. Are they all at books in them or just?
Yeah, they do. But I did take the 2 down, and she's got 2 big boxes in her room.
Oh, okay. I've got a couple outside the door. So.
Yep, I left those ones there, but the other 2 I took and put in the room.
Awesome.
So,
Thank you,
and then
ma'am.
She has a couple big ones in her back corner.
Okay, and you need me, just call on the phone.
Okay.
Linda's aware, she can take over the conversation.
Okay, sounds good. Thank you.
All right.
What now?
You are aware of what is going on.
But what about taking over?
It's just a discussion.
Oh,
We're
just wait a
having
second here.
discussion. You don't want to be put in charge of something? Come on. All right. It is 3 o'clock, so I think we can get started. All I did, and if you can't get in it, let me know. So I created a Restart School, and that's my great way to label it, committee folder. So check your access and let me know if you can't get in. We're gonna try and use the same Zoom link every single week, so I did put that at the top of the agenda. For those of you who have never used a Google Agenda, there's 3 dates on the top. Obviously today's June 3rd, so you would click on that date and it'll take you right to that. When we get this, it'll be a long agenda, and you just click on the next date and it'll take you to that agenda. So it doesn't matter today because you can see June 3rd at the top of it, but when we get down to a lot farther, that'll be helpful. Thank you for coming and doing this. We don't know what we don't know with this process, so speak up if you have any questions, if there's a consideration that we haven't thought of. I've gotten a lot of guidance, but no direction, which kind of sounds contradictory, but
It's kind of been the same with the board, the WASBA that we go on the site. There's almost something daily, and you know, there's different suggestions, but there's not
Julie, can you hear
any
me?
what's
Yes.
going to happen.
yes, Chris, I can hear you. I can't see you, but I can hear you, so that's half the battle, right? All right, yes, and so they keep giving us more things to look at and more things to look at. So I linked in the agenda, it's called The Simple Way to Explain What We Are Up Against, and it's just what will schools do in the fall? Here's 4 possible scenarios. So, and there's lots of links in it, read anything you want, but the first thing is break to click. So the school district will begin an academic year with traditional in-person classes, but will have to plan and prepare for an outbreak that might happen in the future. Click to brick. So we're gonna continue doing online, but as soon as the health department says it's okay, and again, this is a couple weeks old, so and this was written for national, and our state has already said what they're gonna do, but the idea is that we might not be able to start in the fall, but we're gonna eventually, we'll have to do online, and then we'll become everybody in the building. Then there's the blended either way and online. So again, we have to think of all the different possibilities, and nothing's gonna be set in stone. Then I put on the agenda numerous links. So, hello, Cher. I just put the information on there. So the one is from DPI. Our insurance, Tricor gave us some insurance guidance. There was a TNTP link about doing online and accelerating learning. This is a Google Drive, I have to open it. Oh, reopening guidelines PDF from, which one is this? It's only 17 pages, so it's not, okay, so it's about, this kind of came from the CDC, and it's got a lot of links within it. Then the staff suggestions for the 2021 school year. So a couple weeks ago, I reached out to the staff and just said, type anything you have for an idea in this document. Then DPI and WASDA is creating, it's not even in final draft yet. So if you click on that and look at it, that's about 25, 30 pages of, before we leave in the spring, before the school ends, make sure you have these 200 things done. And then the last one is the NIET guidance. And basically it's a way to look at, of course I didn't bring my paper folder because I didn't think of it. I have a whole paper folder with everything printed that we can look at. But it's asking questions and it's guiding us through the process of what should we do and how should we do it. Does anybody have any questions about that yet? Okay. So that one's only 41 pages.
Not that, it's a lot of stuff.
It's a lot of stuff, but it's broken. I think it's really well written so that it's, the first section is taking inventory, and I figured that if we even got through that section right now, that would be a great beginning of what do we have and what are we doing, how are we moving forward. So what I did is I took most of these questions and I typed them into the Google Doc. So no questions yet? I'll keep going otherwise. All right. So how many students are expected to be enrolled in the fall? I'm going to assume we're going to have we have about 440. Oops, my number locks out. And then how many of these students have pre-existing conditions or compromised immune systems? And I wouldn't have any idea. Guys?
Well, your diabetic students might be under there, so. I guess I don't know who, we had some of our students that had, cancer problems in the past, probably those students too.
Yep.
I wonder, Julie, if that's a report that Mary Jo could run through
Okay.
Skyward.
Probably some of that is, hopefully they're going to come out with a form, because parents don't necessarily have to share everything. So hopefully they will come out with a form that the school can use, that it's somewhat required, that, you let the district know if there are any underlining health conditions that have not been. I would say if there's students that can't do Phy-Ed because of health, I'm guessing that we have probably at least 15 to 20%, if it's not higher. But I'm sure some have not shared.
Right, and we don't know that. And that's one of those risks that parents have to take in order to allow their kid to come to school.
Mm-hmm.
They have to balance those. So what we'll do is we'll look for a form, and thanks for typing, Kathleen, asking MJ to run us a report from Skyward. So who's already been identified, and then again, maybe we do that again in the fall, or maybe in August, when we send out all the new enrollment things for the year, please fill this out and let us know.
Did you just see Shelley's comment there, Julie?
No. Who?
Could we look at 504 plans as well?
Okay. So we need to look at immunocompromised. 504, potentially students with an IEP, diabetes. I don't see, Shelley has notes in here? Is that what you said, Sherry?
I just saw it pop up.
Oh.
I just commented in the chat.
Oh, thank you. Oh, you know why? Because I'm not on the chat.
Okay.
I don't know who's all here. Oh, there's 11 people here.
Oh,
Chat, I'll bring the chat up. So yes, 504 plans for other health impaired. Perfect, thank you.
Do we need to consider family members as well?
Can you give me an example?
Well, if we're considering our students who might be immunocompromised, what about family members they might be bringing something home to? Not just exposure to the students, but also exposure to people in their immediate household or they have regular contact with.
Thank you.
And I do believe in what I have seen on the site that we would have to provide something for that student, but if there are family members that are high risk, I don't think they're going to have to physically send them to school. From what I have read, like I said, everything is so preliminary. There's nothing carved in stone, but I mean, they have said that about employees, you know, students that would maybe have a family member who's going through chemo or, you know, even end of life issues, that we would have to provide the same type of education for them if they would not come to school.
All right, then we have, again, I'm just gonna follow the questionnaire, and if something sparks, you guys just ask questions. What percent of the kids that arrive at school ride a bus, walk, ride, or bike, or are parent transported? I guess we could run, I can ask Owen for a list of kids that ride the bike, ride the bus. Because when we get that far, we'll have to figure out if we can run them in one route, if we have to run them in two routes, if the parents don't want them on a bus, they're gonna drive them, you know, those are all considerations. How many adults are on staff? We have about 75 total in the building daily. It says breakdown of staff. I don't know what that wants us to do, like maybe staff that are, so like generally the central office wouldn't be, or district office wouldn't be exposed to students on a day-to-day basis, whereas the high school office would be. Or the night staff wouldn't be exposed, other than they wouldn't be directly exposed to kids, but they would be exposed to the germs, anybody's germs. We'll have to ask our staff how many are higher risk. So some sort of a, for them, some form. And again, I don't know if they want to share that. They're going to have to, I guess. The legality of that's kind of mind-blowing.
Well, again, you know, some of that would have to be shared if they would not physically be in the building. You know, so those would definitely have to share, I think, to qualify for, you know, what's ever going to be out there. But yeah, some of the other, you know.
All right. How many classrooms do we have available? That's easy to get, and the size of each class is easy to get. The big one is, are the desk tables able to accommodate the 6-foot rule?
Yeah.
And I would say that depends on the class.
I would say not with the numbers in our elementary. I think that 6 foot would be, I know there's a reading area, and maybe if you eliminate some of that, but I think if every elementary student, our classrooms are 6 foot might be kind of pushing it.
Right. The upper elementary, which is the lower elementary kids, that new wing has larger classrooms. So by default, that one's going to be, those are going to be safer, that they can get the kids farther apart. I'm more worried about the 3-5 because those rooms are smaller.
And the kids are bigger.
And the kids are bigger.
Fifth grade is that smaller class.
Who?
Fifth grade next year is that smaller class. They only have 10. At least this year, they only had 10 per classroom.
Okay.
But band and choir wouldn't be able to accommodate.
So, and again, we're not making any decisions here, but what kind of additional spaces are available? Willow Valley, if they would let us use the basement. Community gym. outdoors.
Right, there possibly could be some outdoor teaching going on.
The greenhouse is outside. We can use the classroom in the bus area.
Greenhouse air quality might be a question. So that's kind of hot.
Only until it gets cold. And then it's really cold.
Yeah, I know, but.
Yeah. So on our agenda for tonight, we have 2 other meetings tonight, but on the agenda is the discussion of the, Kathleen, what are we calling it? Amphitheater?
Yes.
Thank you. Amphitheater. We're going to push that forward, hopefully push it forward with board support on Monday. Discussion of it, having it be yet another, we have the outside patio. And then we would have the amphitheater as another outdoor setting that we could potentially have kids.
Oh, St. Mary's as well,
Thank you.
Keysville.
And I wrote down Lloyd. Is that a community center there?
Yep, old school, yeah.
Can anybody think of anything else that we would have that we could potentially use for classroom space if we have to?
What about the mezzanine?
Mezzanine, thank you. Gyms. Gym and the multipurpose room.
Well, the old, the bus garage shop, the old Mrs. Murphy's speech room, where down at the old, does everybody know what I'm talking about?
No.
The egg.
Well, it was not the egg. Well, kind of. It's the classroom down there. It was.
I
It's
put
been,
classroom in the bus area.
yeah.
Well, there's even the bus, technically we could use the garage if we needed to.
Right.
If our number one thing is to get people farther apart, then that's what we should do. Cleaning, okay. Can anybody think of anything else? All right, and then cleaning protocols. So, and this isn't, to me, this is a bigger discussion of cleaning because we have to talk about after a child leaves home, what's their next step? So like first they would get on a bus or then they would enter school. And then they walk through a hallway. And they get into a class. They're gonna have to eat something. They're gonna have to use the restrooms.
Lockers, cubbies.
Lockers, cubbies. And then they'll have to get back on a bus or leave school somehow. So between each one of these, we will eventually be developing a best practice. And those haven't come, the guidance hasn't quite come from our county yet. They haven't, I shouldn't say that. Our county has not developed brand new guidance. They are using the typical guidance. So like Madison is in Dane County. Dane County has developed their own safety protocols for their county. and their Department of Health Services has the right to do that. Our department hasn't created brand new protocols. They've kind of gone with the typical protocols. So until we hear differently, we just have to follow what would be considered normal protocols, if there is such a thing as normal protocols at this time. All right. Next on the list, and again, speak up if you guys have any questions. I'm just kind of running through it. I was asking questions about the district overall. How many staff members are expected to return for the new school year? I haven't heard anybody leaving yet. I mean, I asked earlier. I did get an answer if anybody wanted to retire. And Mike Monty said he was going to retire in 2032 or something like that. I said, thanks for the advance notice. I don't remember the year, but it could have been that year. But nobody said they were going to retire. And so far I haven't heard of anybody wanting to getting a new job or leaving or anything. So that's nice. I don't know about anybody wanting to leave due to health concerns or concerns about in-person teaching yet. I mean, we do have a couple of compromised staff members, and they have dealt with what we've needed to do as best they can. If they are people that have had to come to work, they're not here when we have books drops and student drop off, they don't show up for those. They have notes on their doors and stuff that they are not to be disturbed, don't come in their room without permission, that kind of a thing. That'll have to be firmed up when there's children running all over everywhere. But again, those kind of protocols we haven't quite gotten there. The supply of bus drivers across our district and which ones have higher risk with coronavirus. Actually right now, I don't think our bus driver, I think we're doing pretty good if everybody comes back. Again, I don't know. Supply of substitute teachers, bus drivers, nurses, counselors, and other support staff across the district, and how many individuals have a higher risk. So I do know that most of our substitute teachers are retired teachers, so by default, they're retired and they're older. The bus drivers, again, we've got a retired bus, a person that retired from their position, and now they're driving bus as a permanent part-time, I forget what we call him. He's a substitute, so by default, substitutes are usually a little older. So I think we're gonna have to be really worried about when we set up day-to-day operations. If there's a sub needed, we're gonna have way smaller of a pool to pick the subs from. Nurses, so on the agenda, I've been working on nurse protocols. The board has discussed hiring a nurse. We have not discussed hiring a nurse like 1 day a week. We talked about 1 day a month. And we do have some allotted money for that because we won't be paying the county for that. They're not supplying us a county nurse anymore as of July 1 unless something major changes, and I doubt it because they don't have time to do what they need to do with coronavirus. They certainly don't have time for a county nurse. So the county will have to find a nurse to employ by our district. And the board is on board with that. We just haven't defined it. I did ask, we did have it advertised. We did get some applicants. Brooke is on looking at the applications because it was about 3 months ago. I pushed a few things aside. And so that's in the works to get the, calling them, seeing if they still are interested in it, and do they want to come in for an interview. So that's going to happen late June, early July. Any questions yet? Okay, so again, going through the last time, what additional spaces does the district have to access? We already did that. Talks about buses. So how many buses are or could be made available in the district. We're actually talking about buying a bus or two, if we can swing it. I don't know how that's gonna work. I'm thinking we're gonna have to run double routes to get everybody in, or all kids from one family will have to sit in one seat so that it minimizes contact. And if we have to run it until we get, 12 kids on a bus, or if we're not allowed to have that many, then we run it until we get 10, and then we go to the next, we come back, drop them off, and they get started teaching, and the next group gets picked up.
I mean, I'm sure you're all aware, we've had a very hard time getting bus drivers. So, I mean, getting the buses, if we would need a couple more, that probably would not be as much of an issue, even if we had to maybe lease if we couldn't afford to buy. But then you have to have somebody that can drive them. And that's been a real, we just, those people just aren't out there. So our chances are, just with our past history, is if they're gonna say you can only have 15 kids on a bus, we would have to drop those off, go back, pick up. And, I just can't see that all of a sudden we could find 3 or 4 more drivers. I mean, we struggled to find one.
And we do have, I'm sorry, what?
This is Sherry, I was just going to say that would make it very interesting when you'd have 15 kids. Well, you'd have kids coming in and out at many different times of the hour. We would have a totally different structured teaching style then, that's for sure.
Yeah, I think we all know it's going to be very different.
Yeah. Just pointing it out.
Yeah, and we might have a lot of parents saying, nope, I don't want my child riding a bus, I'm driving them.
Yeah.
So we might have to have more of a flex schedule for our own staff, that if a lot of the 4Kers get here early, maybe our 4K paraprofessional needs to get here earlier so that those kids can be dropped off earlier and we can start teaching immediately until the whole group gets there. I don't know. And we don't have any guidance yet about how many kids we can have in the classroom, whether or not, because as of July 1, there is an absence of guidance, is how we've been talking about it. There is no guidance yet. And so we have to plan for lots of different eventualities. Going back to buses, some of our bus drivers work all day and only do morning and afternoon routes. So if we have to do repeated routes, I mean, we might have kids, I can virtually see a bus running not 24/7. We're not teaching in the middle of the night, but you get what I mean. Nonstop, that a kid can get picked up here. You can only get 9 kids, but we leave and you have to drop them all off and then pick up the next bunch and come back and then go back and get 10 more and drop off and pick up. So that's going to be a nightmare for busing.
And at this point, just so that you're aware, with our typical governments, they are not offering at this point any extra funding, as far as they're telling us what we may have to do, but they're not giving any kind of solution how that will be paid for.
Yep. I think on the plus side, when you talk about technology, we have been beefing up technology. We were lucky enough to work through and get a nice hunk of technology last summer, so that we have, I think we got 75 new Chromebooks last summer to replace broken ones. We have almost one-to-one we do have one-to-one from 5th grade on. And we're looking into making sure that the teachers have what they need in their classroom so that they can teach, because some of their desktops are getting older. And also making sure that we can do some technology with the littles. So, 1st grade, 2nd grade, 3rd grade, they haven't had any technology. And some technology lends itself to the little ones. The touch screens are better for them. But unfortunately, they're way more expensive. So the two quotes we had was $275 for one with a 10-inch screen and $399 for one with a 14-inch screen. So we can get a Chromebook up and running for $275. So it has the keyboard and everything. So I don't understand why the touchless are, anyway, it's just something I don't understand. I'm not a computer person, so. Having said that, we still have parents that can't get internet because we have offered them a Wi-Fi hotspot and they haven't been able to use it because they don't get cell service. So we're still stuck with families that do not have access through no fault of their own. They don't live on the ridge, they live on the hollow. So they just don't get internet, and therefore we have to make sure that those children are afforded the same opportunity the other kids are. So that's about it for the questions. Anything else you guys just want to mention that's any conversation that has sparked with more questions we should be asking, identifying our, our weak spots, are just things that we haven't mentioned when it comes to these 3 or 4 areas that we've talked about, our inventory-ish.
Julie has, whoops.
Go ahead, Chris.
I hope I have that. No,
We can hear you.
I know. I got it up on 2 screens, so. And that's given the feedback.
You gotta mute one of them,
That's what I'm working on.
bottom right corner, speakers.
I got it. It just isn't showing up yet. It's still going around in a circle. All right, let me try that again.
Oh, I didn't hear any echo that time.
Has DPI given you any timeline on when they might come out with some things?
No. I did link their guidance, but their guidance is so long, and that's all we're getting is guidance. The thought process, and it's nice guidance, and I did put it in the folder, so I'm pretty sure I shared the folder with everybody. Let me just do that again. No, not yet. I'm going to share the folder with everybody so you guys can see everything I see. And in there it's called a copy of a draft, because I just made a copy of the draft that they sent me. He asked me to read it over the weekend. So that's what I did last weekend. I read the draft. And my first comment was, we're a small school, this is too overwhelming. And he said, that's good to know. But there's an overview, there's a tab on governance, infection control and mitigation, school safety and mental health, teaching and learning, special education, gifted and talented, English learners, school operations, out of school time programs, technology, and then terminology. So that's how many tabs there are in it, and each one has numerous things to look at, district considerations and school considerations. So thankfully we just are a school that is a district, so we're better off that way. But we also have a much smaller staff to do all of this. And a lot of it is just links to things. It's like a one-stop shop for what happens for this, what happens for that. And it's nothing that we don't already know. They didn't come up with something new. They just created this document for ease of access, basically. So yeah, the guidance is poor. I'm pretty sure I linked that. Oh, I did link it. Do you guys, if you have the agenda, you have the DPI WASDA guidance and the NIET guidance.
and the Tricor insurance guidance, which is actually pretty good, talking about mitigating the expectations and mitigating the ability for us to keep kids safe. We can do what we can do the best we can, but there's no way that we are, and we'd be silly to think we could. There's no way we can keep everyone, we can't promise that kids aren't gonna get COVID-19 from attending school. And if a parent chooses to then take all their children's things online from our school and teach them themselves, or work with the teacher through Zoom or phone calls or whatever, then that's, you know, that should be an expectation that we will do the best we can with their child never entering the school district. I don't know what it's gonna look like, of course, but I'd rather have us have that child be educated than the parents saying, oh, we're just gonna homeschool. Because I think there's unless they're a teacher, which many of our parents are teachers, but if you're not a teacher, you don't know how to teach your kid. And homeschooling leaves out all that general expectation for the kids. And then again, that's my opinion, and I'm biased because I'm a public educator. So we're supposed to plan all of those if-thens. I think, I mean, I know Julie said there's like 11 people. I can see 2. But I think what's really important is that you that have gone through this the last few weeks, months, really, you know, say what has worked, what do you think hasn't, and, you know, how we could move forward with, you know, we are definitely going to have some that it will be technology. I'm sure we're going to have some families that are going to opt to keep their kids home and maybe continue with the way they are. It also may be mandated that with the numbers that, you know, we may have face-to-face one day, but the next day you may have to do the technology. I don't have any kids. I have, you know, I mean, my kids are grown and gone. I have a couple grandchildren who have given me feedback, and I've gotten some positive and some negative from parents. But I really, you know, as a board member also have not really heard from, you know, staff as far as this really worked, getting the hot spots, you know. So I think that's important, and I'm glad that you're, you know, have stepped up and are on this committee, because you've walked the walk.
So does anybody want to share? Even Cammie's a teacher.
Yeah, Cammie's a teacher. She has a, yeah. How'd you get those kids to toot over?
Well, it was hard. You can hear me, correct?
Yes.
Yes.
Okay. All right. You know, when I was teaching my kids, because I do kindergarten through 5th grade, I'm not in band anymore, so I'm just at elementary. And, you know, I just felt like I was providing enrichment. That was a frustrating thing for me is, you know, I really didn't feel like I was furthering their education like I would have been if they were in school. Because I was giving guidance from our technology people that were supposed to be very limited, and, you know, as to the minutes we can provide for videos and stuff like that. So I know if we start like this in the fall, I want to do it differently. You know, I'd rather be like teaching via Zoom or something like that, so I can provide quality education instead of just an enrichment activity. And I know, you know, having kids too, you know, some classes I felt that they were actually learning and going forward with their education, and some classes it was just kind of maintaining and, you know, an enrichment kind of thing. So it'd be kind of nice if we, you know, had something where we all can move forward in their education, which I know it's hard with limited technology and internet capabilities, I know it's really hard. And I don't know how to effectively go through that, but
Well, and I will share this, and this isn't to upset anyone, because I think our school size, we are unique. But when, you know, I do some of these webinars and that, it is kind of for our area, but now they've made it to include a lot of the larger schools. And they are talking about essential subjects.
mhm.
And I have had a couple conversations already with Mrs. Prouty that I'm very strong for the arts, for any of the music, any of those. And we also have a graduation requirement. Still, at Ithaca, we're one of the few schools that have that. But I'm just saying that, you know, as we move forward, we're going to have to advocate, because I think some of the larger schools, which we're always up against, when you go to conventions or anything, it's always what the big schools want. And they are talking about the essentials. Kathleen,
Yeah.
you there?
I'm here. So one thing, you know, I 100% support what Linda says. I believe strongly in the arts and what it offers kids. And so I talked to Mary Beth during, you know, when we were working on standards work, you know, performance is hard via Zoom. So I would encourage, you know, her and Liz and you, Cammie, to look at what other options can you do that's, you know, whether it's theory or exploration or something, and tie in maybe some ELA and math standards to really build up that this is what's best for kids in a different way. And we still want to investigate how we can do that performance, because that's where the true benefit to, you know, your creativity and all that stuff comes, I think.
Well, and
Yeah,
I was gonna ask you, Kathleen, you said some school district already laid off all of their PE, art, and music teachers.
So I'm on, in Facebook, I'm on a COVID, and I think there are other Ithaca staff on it. And I don't know what state it's in, but yeah, there's a lot of layoffs. And I think has to do with funding more than, you know, because states their unemployment's ramped up. They've extended all this money to businesses and all this stuff, and there's only so much in the pot. And so I don't, you know.
Yeah. All right.
Well, it's just not an ideal way to teach, you know, like instrumental music.
No, not
It was tough.
Mhm.
And I do feel like it was, like you said, Cammie, it was kind of just, I was trying to maintain. I was trying to keep them playing. And I found with high school especially, they had 5 videos that were due. I gave them 1 each week, and then I gave 2 also written assignments. Some of the kids, their parents didn't push them to do their work at home. So now this last week, I got 5 videos within 15 minutes. You know, so they really didn't play the whole time. They just did it 1 week. It just, I don't know. I just hate this.
Well, and the other thing too, you know, like Cammie, you mentioned it was enrichment. Going forward, what I've read is that can't happen. We have to have actual learning happen. And so that's the essential need of this committee, is how can we do that, you know, the best, but to move us forward, whether it's in music or math. And what kind of learning are the teachers going to need to be able to do that? I'm not very techy as it is.
I'll share a little bit. I think there was learning happening. This is not my cup of tea, because teaching special ed, in order to keep them interested, I like to have movement. I like to have games. I can't do that with this type of format. All of my students passed except 1. I could not reach that student unless that parent can tell me why I should pass her child. I don't think I can. I have not been able to speak to that parent although I have probably made at least 10 phone calls. But this is a child who may have really probably just slipped by if he was in the classroom. I was able to Zoom with 4 of my students fairly consistently, and the others I would have liked to have worked with them more, but I think they did okay. I am really, really hoping we don't have to do this, because I think it's just really hard for kids in special ed overall.
I think it's hard for a lot of kids. I have one grandson who's really, really struggling. And I mean, he was a straight A student. And not having that teacher contact. I also know that there might be a little issue of gaming.
Yeah.
And, you know, at grandma's house, it might be different. But I also know that not having that social is really inwardly, he's drawing in, and yeah, not having contact with family. I mean, our kids are going through a lot, as well as our staff. I mean, I think we're well aware of that, but I think for some kids, we have to figure out how to have face-to-face, unless it's just ordered that we can't.
Does anybody else want to share how education went for them? What they would do differently, or what they would add or take away?
Well, I saw about 15 students regularly. We got into a groove where the schedule was set, and, you know, things happen, but it got to the point where, you know, the parents were really pro having speech class. They would say, I can't make it, but let's reschedule. So I ended up seeing, you know, a lot of kids all week long. And the feedback I've gotten so far is they really liked the consistency. Like you know, it was, this group was Monday, Thursday, or Monday, Wednesday. The other group was Tuesday, Thursday. They had their times. And every time I called, they were ready. And like I said, if something came up, boy, we got them in that same week and made up the sessions. Toward the end, a couple of my students were getting kind of tired of it and, you know, lacked some motivation, but that was 2 out of 15. I think the kids really enjoyed the consistency that I gave them. Seeing me, they knew exactly. They were there Zooming. They were working the computer. They knew exactly what was going on and when it was happening. And so I really thought that they did make gains. I don't know what it would have been like if I didn't see any of them. I wish I could have done more students, but I took like the 15 most needy. And, you know, it was okay. I mean, was it ideal? No, but I'll tell you, you know, I was just going to maintain their speech, but some of them did so well, I started introducing new sounds, and I had a lot of parent support. Every time I Zoomed a child, the parent was there the whole time. You know, like trying to get okay, I'd be like, my 4Kers, where'd they go? You know, they would up and like go under the table or something. And the parent was right there saying, oh, you have to sit back in your chair, you're not done yet, you know, how little kids can be. But I was really impressed. There was always a parent in the room the whole time. And they were really working, you know, this is your speech time. This is what we're doing. We're not going anywhere until we're done with speech. So I was really pleased with the parent support every week that I got with the kids.
And you know, the positive with that, Lynn, is that the parents got to see what actually would have happened if they were right here with school. So now hopefully they've picked some of those things up and,
Right.
you know, use it at home.
Yep, and like what I did is I made them packets, but I had a copy of their individual packets. So I would say, okay, turn to page so-and-so, and the parents were right there going, okay, here you are, this is what you're working on. And I told them to keep it because I did all the data collection while we had this session. So I have oodles of data on what the kid did every time. And I said, use the homework. We've done the pictures and practice, you know, practice when we're not Zooming through the week on these sounds. So, you know, it was good. I know some of my parents wished that that having other teachers teach like a math class. Math was really hard for a lot of my parents, and I told them I don't know math, although I was going to be a math teacher, but it's changed so much that they said they wished that the teachers would have had a strict program of Zooming like a math class, because you know, they didn't have the consistency with their other students in their academic areas, you know, as the consistency that I had. And it would have made it easier on the parent if they could even watch the Zoom lesson and understand the math so that they could help them with their homework.
Yeah, I'm gonna agree with that, Lynn, just because, you know, I was talking to some parents one time, and I was really surprised at the parents that were saying this. But I mean, they even said, I work all day, why would I come home and teach my kid math or teach my kid reading, you know? And so, you know, like I said, I was surprised at some of the parents that were saying this, and I think there's a lot more of them that did that. I'd be interested in see what are the percentages of kids that actually did their work on a consistent basis and didn't do like what Mary Beth said, hand it all in at the last week so that they could, you know, get a passing grade for it.
And I did feel bad for some of the parents because, you know, math has changed so much, and, you know, I understand where they're coming from, because I don't think I could do third grade math now the way they're doing it without having a tutorial ahead of time and seeing exactly what the steps I'm supposed to. I could give them the answer and show them the old way, but that's not what they're striving for these days. And so I think if the parents, you know, could sit there or have it taped or watch a lesson. But yeah, a lot of parents were frustrated that they had to work. I saw a lot of kids at their grandparents' house because that's who babysits, you know, and they were just, you know, concerned. The parent then would say to me, you know, they were at grandma's, I don't know how to do the math. I don't know how to do the art or whatever and I just said, well, just do the best you can, because I mean, I can't help them with that, you know. And I really encouraged them to call the teachers during their office hours. I said, if you can't do that, just call them. They'll help you. But you know, if they had a lesson, I think if kids had a lesson every day and knowing that the teacher is going to stand at the whiteboard and show a math problem, and then they would have their homework and then pass the homework in that night. I think Weston does that. You could get, you know, the homework done that day, and you know that the kids were the ones that were understanding it and the ones that were still struggling with it. You know,
so I'm going to interject, Lynn, because the decision was made not to go that route like Weston did because of connectivity.
Yeah, I know that.
Later
I
on,
do understand.
Yeah.
No, I understand that, and I know that was the decision. This is just the thoughts, and I talked to the parents and said, well, not everybody can get online. They can't Zoom. It's, we have to figure out what we could do to provide that same teaching environment to the kids that don't have internet. Yeah, I know that was the reason. But they were just concerned parents. That's all I'm saying.
Well, I ended up being a math teacher for this past couple of weeks, and
How'd that go for you? I saw you doing.
let me just say, I'm glad school's out for the summer. But
So are her students.
so are my students. I found out for one of our, we actually hired a math teacher in the midst of all this, and I found out that there's an online thing that the kids just can put the math in, and it gives them the answer. So when I had 25 pages all handed in together, and it just number 1 answer, number 2 answer, number 3 answer, nothing.
No,
They didn't do the math. But so showing your work, whatever. I took anything that the kids gave me because I knew it was going to be a stress. But if I knew I was going to be teaching math again like this next year, I would have taped myself. I ended up doing lessons not online, on the phone. I put my phone, my husband's like, are you done yet? I'd have my phone sitting there, and I have to work them through in order to do them with the kids. So I'm reading them, 3x squared plus 2x plus 4 equals 0, and then put your 2 sets of parentheses, and we would work through it. Had I known I was going to do it again next year, I would have taped myself teaching every single lesson. I would have done it. Who said that?
I think that's a wonderful idea.
Yeah, I would have said, all right, I'm on this page, and I would have put my camera, phone up or whatever, and I would have said, I'm going to do this example, I'm going to work through this, and then I'm going to tell you the reasons why, and then I would tape myself doing it, and then I would write the next one on the board and say, all right, your first step is what? And then I'd give them a few seconds, and then I would say, all right, first I'm going to do this. Why did I do it that way? And then I would give them one practice problem. It would be like a 3 or 4 minute video of how to do them. Yeah. And I would put that online. They could click on it. They could, when it's that short, you can go and download or upload. I don't remember which one it is. And then you can watch it. And then the parent can watch it and say, oh, and if they don't get, and then you prove to me, you know how to do 3 to 5 of them. If I ask you, look at number 8, why did you do step number 2 the way you did? And they can tell me why, and it's the right answer. I know they know how to do them. So
right.
That's
what
the parents are looking for.
That's exactly what they're looking for. I'm talking like middle school to high school students. And that's exactly what they wanted. Because boy, if you could visually see a math problem, it's so much easier.
Like I said, if I was the math teacher, I probably would have done. I probably would have started from the get-go. But of course, I'm not just a math teacher. But now I'm only a superintendent, so I'm happy. My math is done for the quarter. Oh. All right, so I want to honor our time because it was a 3 to 4 meeting, and I want to make sure we only do an hour. So I want to know if anybody has anything to say about their teaching yet. I don't know who's still on the call.
I don't know where.
Pick it up next time.
Yeah, we will definitely pick it up next time. I've got a general idea now between now and next week what I want to narrow in on a little bit more. For those of you who, again, I have seen my agendas, they're there. If you have questions, go ahead and type them right into the agenda. I have no problems with that. That's why you, as our team, has total access to this. And if you don't, just let me know. I'll make sure that you get it. I will use an agenda. This week's was a little thin, and I forgot my whole file folder because I had something else going on. Yes?
She's here.
All right, thank you. Yep. So perfect timing. I actually have something else going on now. So thank you, everybody. See you next week.
All right, thanks.
Bye-bye.
Thank you.
Yeah.
All right.
So I think on that long list, parent and